Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 206, and this is one of the most exciting ones that I've ever put together for me personally. So we're playing at Bobby's room. We're playing high stakes in there for the very first time, and that's something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I'd kind of teased it in previous vlogs, but it actually happens here. So very excited to share it with you. And then a few announcements to make. One is that I'm gonna be out at the Lodge in Austin, April 26th through May 1st. I'll be firing in the monthly monster event, and I'll be playing quite a bit of cash as well. And then the Lodge Championship Series is May 4th through the 23rd. There are tournament buy-ins at all different levels, and I'm gonna be out there May 16th through the 23rd for that with an official meetup game with Andrew, Doug, and me May 22nd. So we'll be playing 2-5, and we'll just be hanging out and having a good time. So hope to see you out there. Let's go ahead and get started. Today, I'm making the same drive that I normally do to a property I normally go to with plans to play my normal stakes. I have no way of knowing right now, but this day will be anything but normal and it won't go according to plan at all. There's a reserved 100-100 no limit game taking place at Bellagio that I've had my eye on playing for about the last year or so. It's inside what used to be called Bobby's Room. That's now been renamed to Legends Room, where the highest stakes games in the world are played. I've only ever played in here twice when for some reason the floor had 5-10 must moves spill into it on very rare occasions. I've never been inside to play high enough stakes to actually warrant being in there, but that's about to change. Months ago, I somehow woke up with the stones to hop into the 100-100 game, and I exchanged numbers with the person who runs it since the list isn't run by Bellagio's front desk. Typically, pros aren't allowed in until hours after it starts, so by the time I got the call, I'd already left, and the game was much worse anyway. A few other times I poked my head in and they had a seat, but I was too chicken to sit down. Today, they asked me if I want to play it, and after battling in 100-200 at the Lodge, I feel ready. The only issue is that I didn't bring enough money with me since I was only planning on playing 5-10. I texted as many close friends as I can who might be on the strip to see if they'd be willing to lend me money so I can take my shot. I'm frantically trying to scrap together as much as possible because I only have about $8,000 on me, and ideally, I'd have around $40,000 at my disposal. I tell the game runner to hold the seat for me while I'm getting my financial situation in order. In the meantime, I buy into the 5-10 game for $1,500. We begin at 12:49 p.m. Half hour goes by, then I pick up Ace-King offsuit under the gun. I raise to 30. The hijack calls, the button calls, the big blind calls. We're going 4 ways to the flop. It comes King 6 deuce rainbow. We've got top and a multi-way pot. The big blind checks. I bet 50 for value. Narrowing this down to one player would be great, preferably if the big blind is the only caller so that I can play from in position going forward. The hijack folds, the button folds, the big blind calls. We get exactly what we want. It's down to heads up. The turn is the queen of diamonds. The big blind checks. I'll mix in betting and checking. In this instance, I check back for pot control and deception. The river is the 8 of diamonds. The opponent makes essentially a pot-sized bet at 220. A lot of the time when players do this, they just always have it, but I didn't check back turn. The plans of folding. My hand is under-repped, and I checked back somewhat hoping to induce a bluff from a hand with little or no value. I call. Our play works out exactly as we drew it up. We catch the big blind with his hand in the cookie jar.
6. Okay.
I flip over a pair of kings to save the opponent some embarrassment. He returns his cards face down, so we never find out exactly what he tried to bluff us with. I'm not too concerned about it. My mind is preoccupied with what's to come. The game runner for the 100-100 game says that he'll let me borrow $10,000 from him. He gives me 2 5K chips, also known as flags, since they're red, white, and blue, to get me started. This is one of those times when it's extremely beneficial to have a good reputation in poker. There aren't a lot of industries in which someone that you've only talked to for a total of 5 minutes in your life is willing to spot you $10,000. I've always kept a clean name and never owed anyone money for an extended period of time because I hate that feeling. In the rare instances that I do borrow money, I try to pay people back the minute that I can. I exchange my orange $10 chips for black chips, I cash out the spare change for $75, then I get a full rack of black chips as a fair trade for the 2 5K chips that we borrowed. We've got $11,600 to begin the high stakes session with, and a few thousand behind if we need to add on while I wait for another one of my friends to bring me additional money. This is it. It's the first time we're playing high stakes in Legends Room. I can barely believe it since I've dreamed about this day for years. Even the floor is surprised to see me take a seat.
Are you playing?
Yeah.
Okay, will you swipe in?
Sure.
Sit down?
Yep. Sure. What is the bomb pot?
3. Had 300.
Okay. We're sitting with the big boys and have over 5 figures in front of us. It's uncapped 100-100 with a $100 big blind ante and $300 bomb pots every dealer change, plus we're playing the 7 deuce game, so if someone wins with 7 deuce, the other players at the table have to give the winner $300 each. The game is massive, but I'm surprisingly not as nervous as I thought I'd be. Just weeks ago, I was playing 100-200 and had 80,000 in front of me after getting stuck 30,000 right away, then bit by bit recovering it to basically get back to the even mark. Having done that has given me a lot of confidence, and I feel mentally prepared for what's to come. It's definitely easy to get intimidated as I look at the pictures of the world's best players hanging from the ceiling and then look at my opponent's stacks that are all mostly between 30,000 and 50,000. But I've been in tables with more money on them before, and the people in the game are some of the nicest in poker. This gentleman here named Ron is an author. He even gives me a free signed copy of his book called Tenacity.
Please enjoy. Thank you, man.
After getting settled initially, I take the remaining $6,500 in cash that I brought with me to add on. I bring it over and place it on top of my stack. I'm in for a total of $18,000 on the day. For a moment, I'm completely tapped out and have no extra cash. Then my buddy Jeff finally arrives with reinforcements. Thanks, dude.
Yes. That's 14.9.
I keep the 14.9 as backup rather than immediately put it in play just in case I get stacked here with pocket 7s or at another point down the line and have to reload for a second bullet. Despite borrowing money from 2 different people, I've actually got 100% of my action for this game, and knowing that I'm not playing with every dollar available to me at this minute puts my mind a lot more at ease. If we don't get off to a great start, I won't feel crippled since I can replenish the stack. Hopefully, we won't need to be worried about that as a player in middle position raises to 300. Most of the time, we just want to call. That's what we do here. We're going heads up in position. The flop comes 5-5-4 with 2 spades. We've got an overpair to the board with some backdoor draws. The opponent checks. We're probably best and need to deny equity from hands containing 2 overs. I bet 300. The middle position player doesn't want to give up just yet. He reluctantly calls. I'm hoping the dealer is going to keep it low and preferably red. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. We pick up a gutter. The opponent checks. I put him on high cards. I still want to keep control of the pot, and I don't want to see additional overs or spades. I bet 700. The opponent immediately folds. There's a small pot for this game, but it would potentially be the biggest pot I'd play all day if I'd stayed in the 5-10. It's nice to get off to a good start right away when playing way higher than I usually do. 5 minutes later, we've got King 10 suited under the gun. I raised to 300. We're at the bottom of our early position opening range and hoping not to get 3-bet. The hijack calls, the cutoff calls, the big blind calls. We're going 4 ways to the flop. I hope we don't get coolered. It comes King 8 with 2 diamonds. We've got trips and a multi-way pot. The big blind checks. With several players and a flush draw out there, we can't allow anyone to see free cards, so we won't be slow playing this. I bet 500. It's not a large sizing. I want people to stick around who are drawing near dead with an 8 or perhaps a small to medium pocket pair. The hijack folds. We get 1 customer as the cutoff calls. The big blind folds. It's down to heads up. The turn is the deuce of spades. This is when we need to start increasing the heat. I bet 1300 to ensure the flush draws are properly charged. The cutoff isn't going anywhere. He calls. We definitely don't want to see a diamond unless it's a 10 or a deuce. Instead, the river is the queen of hearts. It should be a good safe card for us most of the time. I have a couple of options. I could check to try and induce a bluff from a missed diamond draw, or I could bet relatively big to make it look like I'm trying to buy it after potentially missing a flush draw if I think my opponent might have made it this far in the hand with something worse that still has value. He's already called 1300 on the turn. I increased the sizing to 3200. I should still be able to get looked up by something like pocket 10s or 9s, maybe even ace-8 suited. The cutoff doesn't think too long. He folds. This one really feels great to win. We're already up 3,000. The opponent is the guy who runs the game. He was nice enough to give me a seat and hold it for me. I'm happy to show him that I have trips and let him know that he made a good laydown against me. The very next hand, we're in the big blind with 9-8 of diamonds. The middle position player raises to 300. We're going to get involved a little more often than I was anticipating early on in the session. I call for 200 more. We're going heads up, out of position. The flop comes Jack 7-4 with 2 hearts and 1 diamond. We've got a gutter and backdoor flush draw. I check. We're not getting anything for free today. The opponent bets 300. There are a ton of cards that can help us. Obviously 10, but also any diamond, 6 or 5 will improve our draws. Calling and raising both seem like reasonable options. I call. If we don't improve, we'll likely give up. The turn is the 3 of hearts. It's time to look for an exit. I check. If we face a bet, we'll be out of here quicker than a Barry Bonds ball at Pac Bell Park. No opportunity. The opponent checks back. Very interesting. He may just have 2 high cards, took a stab at it on the flop, and now has given up. The river is the 7 of spades pairing the board. That's going to be a much better card for my range as the big blind defender. Plus, the middle position player didn't bet turn when the flush draw got there. He could be worried that we'll have one of several strong holdings that'll be in our range. I don't get the sense that the opponent has much of a strong hand anyway. I bet 500. It's a small bet. We're turning really one of the worst hands that we'll ever have into a bluff to get folds out of ace and king highs. It should look like we're really trying to go for value and are trying to induce a call. We could have also chosen a larger sizing to get folds out of hands that we're checking back for pot control on the turn, but don't really want to face a huge bet. I wish that we would have done that because if the opponent calls, I embarrassingly turn over my hand, the middle position player wins with ace-jack offsuit and no heart, good for top-top. Sometimes people show up at the top of their range. I'm not kicking myself too hard about that one. My stack deteriorates as I have to pay other people several times for winning with 7 deuce, and I lose a $300 bomb pot before picking up ace-queen suited under the gun +1. Under the gun raises to 300 with a $49,000 stack. I could call or 3-bet. I 3-bet to 800 to deter people from calling behind me and playing in position. The small blind is a high stakes pro who's been on the vlog in the past. He knows that I don't normally play these stakes and puts in a cold 4-bet to 2600. If he's doing this for value, he's going to have hands that have me crushed like aces, kings, queens, and ace-king. He shouldn't really be bluffing over an under-the-gun raise, then an under-the-gun +1 3-bet. But maybe he occasionally is with a hand like ace-5 suited, perhaps something more creative. Under-the-gun folds, calling for 1800 more and playing an enormous pot with 2 cards that could be dominated doesn't sound too appealing. Ace-queen suited is too strong to let go of in position though. I call, we're heads up, and what's already developing into what could be a huge hand. The flop is ace-9-3 with 2 clubs, we've got top pair. The action's on the small blind, I'm curious to see how he's going to play this. He bets 2500. It's just a slight down bet indicating that he's not afraid of the ace out there. No chance I'm ever folding. I call, somewhat hoping that the opponent will slow down on the turn because a pair of aces with a queen kicker isn't that great in a 4-bet pot if money continues to pile in on future streets. The turn is the 5 of clubs. It's a really bad card because the primary holding that I expect the opponent to be bluffing me with just made 2 pair. The flush draw also gets there, but I'm not very concerned about that given that the ace is a club. If the 9 was a club instead of the ace, I'd be way more worried that I'm drawing dead. The small blind continues with pressure and bets 5,000. I'm having flashbacks to when I lost a $60,000 pot and got stacked during the last time that I played stakes nearly this big. Should I be folding here? You'd think the small blind would pump the brakes with a hand like kings, queens, or jacks. Ace-king seems like the most likely hand that I'd be up against given how this has been played and how many combos of ace-king are possible for the opponent to have. If I call, I'll have 8,600 in my stack and the pot will be over $20,000. I don't see how I'd be able to fold to a non-club river for that amount. If by some chance I'm not already in terrible shape, even if my opponent has 1 club in his hand, he's going to at minimum have quite a few outs. I'm terrified that I'm about to get wrecked. The small blind has shown tons of strength despite me being able to have some really strong hands on this board as well. I can't get myself to lay down top pair yet, even though there are only 2 cards in the deck that'll make me feel any better. I call, making this already the largest pot that I've ever played at Bellagio. I'd like to see a non-club queen 1 time. The dealer puts out a miraculous queen of hearts, we smash it just when we need to. The small blind checks. If he has ace-king here, I could get a massive double up. Part of me is wondering if I'm getting trapped by a set or a flush somehow. Should I check this back? What if I jam, get snap called, and lose almost an extra 9,000? I'll almost definitely get called by ace-king and ace-5, so I can't check back. I subdue the fear of worst-case scenarios and announce 1. The opponent doesn't even think about it. He folds the moment my chip hits the felt. There's no way that he had ace-king or ace-5, and likely didn't have an ace at all. He must have tried to pull some type of elaborate move on me with his pre-flop board bet, coupled with his flop and turn bets. We were probably ahead the entire way as a huge pot, even for this game, comes our direction. With this win, we're up $11,000 at the moment. That's the most that I've ever been winning in any session. I couldn't have pictured it going much better than this, and it's not over. We've got pocket 8s in the small blind just a few hands later. I raised to 400. The big blind defends. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 9-9 deuce with 2 hearts. That's not bad. I bet 300 for value. The big blind calls. You could have a variety of worse hands, including a flush draw. The turn is the 3 of hearts. We pick up a flush draw, but we might be behind or near dead. I check for pot control. The big blind checks back. Okay, he probably doesn't have trips or 5 hearts. The river is the queen of hearts. We improve to a middling flush. I check because I don't know if I can get too many worse hands to call a bet. I'd like to get to showdown, and passive play could induce a bluff from a worse hand. The big blind fires big for 1,300. Our flush is very under-repped. I'm not folding. I call. The big blind didn't look at his cards at any point in the hand for a heart, and actually isn't sure whether or not he's got the winner.
It's pretty good.
Oh.
Do you want to check?
Nice call, actually.
That's fine.
You made a nice call.
No, I didn't check on the top.
The opponent rivers the ace-high flush without being entirely certain whether or not he had it. We get unlucky this time. Fortunately, it's still a great day. We're up $9,000. Minutes after, we pick up pocket 7s in the hijack. Under the gun raises to 300. A player in middle position calls. This is a spot where I can reasonably fold, call, or 3-bet. I call. The button chooses a different option. He 3-bets to 1500. Under the gun calls, but the middle position player folds. I'm getting a decent price to set mine. Mining sets is super fun, and I'm closing the action. I call. We're going 3 ways to the flop. Get ready to smash that like button on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I appreciate you doing that. It doesn't affect the flop at all though. The dealer puts out 10-9 deuce rainbow. We brick it, other than having a backdoor draw to the low end of the straight. Under the gun checks. I check. The button continues with the story that he has a monster. He bets 2500. Under the gun folds. I don't know if sticking around to play a huge pot out of position with third pair is a good idea. I fold, somewhat suspecting that the button's up to no good. The stack dips down to 25,000. We're at least still up 7,000 on the session. There's no time to let our guard down. We pick up Queen 10 of hearts in the small blind. We're doing a round of straddles, so it's 100, 100, 200 with a $100 big blind ante. The hijack raises to 500. The button calls. This is an interesting situation. You're actually supposed to play basically a 3-bet or fold only strategy with the big blind and under the gun straddler behind after the hijack is raised and the button is called. Surprisingly, Queen 10 suited is a pure fold. If there was only one player behind me, I could mix in calling and 3-betting. Here, I call for 400 more, despite it being theoretically incorrect. The under the gun straddler calls to close the action. We're going 4 ways to the flop out of position. Becomes ace queen 5 with 2 diamonds and 1 heart. We've got middle pair and some backdoor draws. I check. The opponents behind me all check as well. The under the gun straddler is now the only player that I'm worried about having a strong hand, since I doubt the hijack would check anything too good after being the pre-flop aggressor. The button almost definitely wouldn't check back a hand better than 1 pair either. These two may not even have hands like flush draws, since at least some of the time they'll bet those. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, so the front door flush draw gets there. Me and the under the gun player are the two most likely people to have strong hands like flushes or a pair of aces, and have good card removal, making it less probable that one of the other opponents will have 2 pair. I take advantage of the situation, and I turn second pair into somewhat of a bluff by betting 1300. It's very possible that we're best as it is, and at least we're able to deny equity in those instances. If we're not best, I don't think anyone other than potentially the under the gun player will be able to call a bet here, and then a large bet on the river. The opponents all fold. We were probably best, or possibly we got something slightly better to abandon ship. It's always nice to see a couple $1,000s come our way, especially since I've seen more opponents win with 7 deuce in a short time than ever before, costing us a few black chips with each one. That really cuts into the profit quickly. Next we've got ace king suited in middle position. This is a pretty hand containing something that I got my girlfriend one time, diamonds. I raised to 300. The player on my direct left 3-bets to 1,000 from the hijack. I'm going to be 4-betting this dude. The player to his direct left beats me to it and puts in the cold re-raise to 2,500 from the cutoff. This is wild. I don't remember seeing the hijack 3-bet once this entire session. The cutoff hasn't been super aggressive pre-flop either. I feel completely handcuffed here. Folding ace king suited seems ridiculous. 5-betting to 8 or 9,000 when one or even both players could have me beat feels like I'd be overplaying my hand. If I did 5-bet and I got jammed on for nearly 25,000 effective, I'd probably throw up a little. Calling and allowing the hijack to call or 5-bet behind me isn't ideal either. I honestly hate every option. I call for 2,200 more, which is possibly the worst route out of all the 3 choices. The hijack calls as well. He definitely doesn't have aces, and I doubt he has kings. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes jack 3 deuce with 2 clubs. We break it about as bad as possible. I check. The hijack checks. The cutoff bets 5,000. There's no way that I can continue on with this hand. I fold. I pick up the camera at this point to get a shot of the board, then I cut it off before something strange happens, so I'll freeze it here as I explain. The hijack folds, then the cutoff surprisingly shows the 3 of clubs for a pair of 3s. He said that he cold 4-bet with ace 3 offsuit, but I think it's a lot more likely that he cold 4-bet with ace 3 suited and flopped a pair with a flush draw. Either way, I'm annoyed at myself for not 5-betting. I'd consult with my friend later, who's a much better player than me. He's a high stakes pro who occasionally plays in this exact game and knows the opponents involved. He said that he actually would have folded to the 4-bet, since the player who 3-bet me is usually very snug and still has to act if I call or 5-bet. With this loss, we're only up $4,000, then we'd lose a few more 7 deuce hands and a bomb pot to only be up 2,000. After being up 11,000 at the high point and being annoyed at myself that I didn't 5-bet ace king to get the opponents to snap fold, I'm not sure I can play my best anymore. I'd rather lock up a win to build some confidence for the next time I want to play at these stakes. It's important for me to get out of here to avoid being stuck and then possibly start trying to force things. I make the decision to rack up to ensure that I'm able to pay back all the money that I've borrowed immediately. take the 10,000 that I owe the game runner out of the rack, I get cash for the rest of the chips that I racked up, I pay back the 5 figures that I owe to someone who's basically a complete stranger, the stress is over, the first time playing high stakes in the most famous cash game poker room on the planet ends with us booking a W. Played for 3 hours, my first time ever playing in Bobby's room in the biggest game that runs in Las Vegas. So I think I was up over 11K or so, or about that at the high point, and then I lost quite a few 7 deuces. It was crazy. I've actually never seen so many, and it's 300 per time someone wins with 7 deuce. I think I lost at least 10 times and lost some $300 bomb pots as well. So stack kept dwindling down, and with that ace king suited hand, I was kind of upset that I didn't 5-bet that one. I knew that if I kept playing and my stack kept dwindling, I was going to start being a little bit frustrated. So I figured it's best just to book a $2,200 win and have, you know, a good experience playing that high stakes and playing in that room with those guys. Those guys are really, really nice and fun group. So hopefully I'll be back. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons, because it helps out the channel a ton. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm always happy to get back to you. This was a particularly special episode for me. So I first moved out to Vegas in 2012 and would go to Bellagio. I'd peek in Bobby's room, see who was in there, and you know, I'd regularly see big name poker people like Doyle Brunson, Patrick Antonius, a ton of other guys, and kind of always just dreamed of being in there with them. So for me to get a shot and to play high stakes in that room was just like a huge bucket list item for me that I've now checked off. And so to be able to film it, to be able to win and to share it with you guys is something that's pretty cool, and I'll definitely remember this session forever. A few bits of advice for anybody who's looking to move up in stakes. The first one would be to get familiar with whoever the most winning players are in that game that you're aspiring to play. And if there's fewer of those guys at the table than normal, maybe it's a good time to take a shot. And I'd also just recommend that you play a short session. That way, hopefully you don't get wrecked too hard, or maybe you can even book a small win. That way you can build up some confidence for the next time you play, maybe play longer and longer sessions as you become more comfortable, and just take baby steps. A few more announcements. April 26th through May 1st, I'm going to be out at the Lodge in the Austin area to play the monthly Monster, and I'll be playing quite a bit of cash as well. I know Andrew's going to be out there too. And then the Lodge Championship Series is going to be May 4th through May 23rd. There are tournament buy-ins for all different amounts. I'm going to be out there May 16th through the 23rd, firing in cash games and tournaments. And we're doing an official meetup game with Andrew, Doug, and me May 22nd. So we'll be playing 2-5, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we'll do something after where everybody just kind of, you know, hangs out and has some drinks, not around poker, and we can just talk about other normal things. I'll have more information in the description box regarding all that stuff. I hope you guys are doing well. Stay safe. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.